Most people either love annuities or they hate annuities. And those feelings come from most likely misunderstanding them in the first place. All right, you wanna know what an annuity is? In the simplest terms possible, it's a financial contract that you take out with an insurance company. You're essentially giving them a chunk of money and they are promising you an income stream from that money. Now, that's in the simplest terms out there possible, okay? Now, we're gonna get into the details of the different types and how do you structure it and all of those things. So first is there's two general places that you start with an annuity: an immediate annuity or a deferred annuity. What do those terms mean? An immediate annuity means that you're going to give up this chunk of money to the insurance company and you immediately expect them to start paying you income from that chunk of money, that lump sum of money. A deferred annuity is you're going to give the insurance company a chunk of money or maybe give them payments over time, and you're going to start your income at some point in the future. You are deferring the income. All right, we're good there? Now let's get into the different types. On the immediate annuity side, basically you're shopping around rates just like you would shop around savings account rates or CD rates. You're basically going to the insurance company who says, I will pay you the most amount of money based off of the amount of money you're going to give me. That's what you're doing. You're just shopping rates. That's something that I do for clients all the time. And I constantly am looking at different insurance companies because guess what? Rates change almost as frequently as CD rates and savings accounts rates do. Now, that's the simpler type of annuity. I want to move over to the more complicated side of annuities, which are the deferred annuities. In this category, you are going to have different structures, different types of annuities of how the money's going to grow, different investment types. And this is where it can get really, really complicated and really where most of that misunderstanding I mentioned earlier comes from. Now, on the deferred side of annuities, there are three major types that we're seeing most individuals use today. The first is going to be the simplest, fixed annuities. These are going to be accounts similar to CDs, savings accounts rate, very safe, and they basically are going to give you a fixed rate of return every, let's say, year, as long as you leave it in there. So maybe you get a fixed annuity that says, all right, you're going to earn 8% a year for the next 10 years. Okay, the next question you want to dig into is that simple interest or compound interest. We'll leave that for a later day. You could probably find some information on that, but it's how that accrues. And generally with fixed annuities, you're looking for the highest rate possible. That's really going to be contingent of where the interest rate environment is. And again, these are for the most conservative clients that don't want any risk to those assets. They want a for sure known growth rate tied to their money. Next is going to be indexed annuities. As the name details, it's tied to an index. Most popular, as you can imagine, is going to be the S&P 500 index. I've seen some that you can tie to the Russell, to the QQQ index, and any other ones. There's a lot of combinations out there. It's getting very, very complicated and very muddied. But in the marketplace right now, most people are finding indexed annuities tied to the S&P 500, and these are a slight step above the fixed, meaning you can earn more in these. But there could be a chance of maybe some loss. There could be a chance that maybe one year you don't earn anything because the market was down, but at least you didn't lose. Then comes variable annuities. Variable annuities have been on the marketplace for actually longer than some of the other ones out there, and they are tied to a portfolio. Now that portfolio could be good and bad, is tied to investment decisions that you make, hopefully with an advisor, but it's your specific portfolio. It's not the index. It's not a fixed rate of return. It's how you allocated that bucket of money. Very similar to probably the 401k or the 403b that you've had for years and years. So variable annuities give you the most upside, but they also provide the opportunity for risk and downside loss. If your portfolio underperforms, you could see losses in your account value. Now, why would you end up using that? All annuities, remember, are tied to an insurance company. That insurance company is going to give you some sort of promise of your money. That could be, we promise that you will at least have this amount of money in 10 years from now paid to you for the rest of your life. Or we promise that every year you leave it in here, your account is going to be growing by X%, right? So whether it's fixed, index, or variable, you want to be thinking about what kind of promises or guarantees do I want included in my portfolio? And I use guarantees lightly because every company is going to have them structured a little bit differently. You really want to make sure that you understand that contract. So now I want to talk about, on a high level, what are the pros of annuities? So first and foremost is it's going to provide reliable, steady amount of income for the rest of your life. That's why you're bringing an insurance company into the mix. You want to offload that risk of, is my portfolio going to last forever if I'm taking out $50,000 a year? Well, you can take some of your portfolio, give it to an insurance company, and maybe they'll say, we promise you 6% off of this number for the rest of your life. Now, you don't want to do that with all of your money, but it could be useful for a portion, and we'll get into a little bit of how you combine annuities and this strategy with others. Check out another video in the future. But that's one of the major pros with annuities, is offloading that risk that you really can't outlive. The next advantage of an annuity is going to be protecting against another risk that I mentioned in another video, longevity risk. It doesn't matter whether you live 20 years in retirement or 50 years in retirement, that insurance company is making a promise to continue that income stream and continue to pay you and maybe also your spouse until both of you pass away. So that's another advantage that you can have from an annuity. Your IRA could provide income for your and your partner's life. That's a unique aspect that many other products don't have. I alluded to it before, but another pro of an annuity is to avoid some market risk. So if you end up utilizing, let's say, a fixed annuity or maybe some of the index annuities out there, you've basically negated the risk of, if the market goes down, this income stream is not affected. And that could be very helpful for individuals who want to have a baseline amount of income to cover their essential expenses without having to rely on market performance. Now we're going to get into some of the cons, which is generally where some of the misunderstanding or where some of the negative feelings come from annuities. The first thing that you want to be aware of is you're giving up liquidity. Now, what does that mean? You don't have access to that chunk of money that you gave to the insurance company all at one time. A lot of these annuities, especially the immediate annuities, you're giving up that asset right from day one. So when you say, here's $100,000 and they're promising, let's say, to pay you $7,000 a year for the rest of your life, you can't go in and say, oops, give me $30,000 of that back. Once you do it, it's done. And some people, they don't like that, or they forget that that's part of the contract. Now, for the deferred category of annuities, you have a little bit more flexibility because, again, you're not starting income right away. So during the deferral phase, right, or what sometimes people call the accumulation phase, where you haven't turned on the income stream yet, you maybe can access some of those dollars that you put in there. Now, when it comes to building strategies for my clients, I'm really only trying to use money that they're not going to need as a lump sum. I've got enough liquidity outside of the annuity where I'm not going to need to touch what we put in here because we want it to do what the insurance company has promised to do for us. Grow for a certain amount of time, give us a certain amount of income. So the con, again, is the biggest one is liquidity. You're giving up the access to the money. The next thing is, because you're bringing in an insurance company, there's some fees to be aware of. Now, not every annuity is equal. There are more fees generally on variable annuities than there are on fixed and indexed annuities. So being aware of the fees is a critical detail to be aware of. The last con that I want you to be aware of is that not every person needs an annuity, so you shouldn't feel like you absolutely have to have one. If your portfolio is sufficient enough where you're not taking a huge portion of it each year for your income needs, you may not need to bring in an insurance company to give you an extra layer of security. So don't feel like everyone needs one. That's part of what a proper retirement evaluation is going to answer for you. So to wrap all things up, we hit on the pros, we hit on the cons, we hit on a high level overview of what annuities are. Who are they for? If you're somebody who's approaching retirement, if you're somebody who's looking to try to figure out, how do I build a reliable stream of income? If you're somebody who has an annuity, who's thinking, is this still right for me? Or is there a better option out there for me? These are the triggers that you should be thinking, hey, I should reach out to Adam. This is what I'm here for. This is why I've spent almost 20 years building retirement plans and why I continue to evaluate what's available on the marketplace, what are these insurance companies putting out there, and are they suitable for you and me to utilize in our retirement strategies. So Click the link below, schedule some time with me. Let's figure out if the annuity you have already or the annuity that you've been eyeballing is going to be right for you for your retirement strategy.